Boy, oh boy, Wednesday night was a night. Woo, buddy. I think I'm all horsed out.
Tired this morning, huh?
I am tired this morning. Coffee did not do it.
What was with your horse the other day?
So they call it colicking, right? Which could mean any kind of stomach ache, I guess. And I think she just dehydrated because it was so cold.
Aw.
That's okay.
No sleep for you.
No, vet came out, 2 big old huge bags of IV.
Oh, wow.
So when you weigh like 1,700 pounds or 1,300 pounds, you get bags of IV that are like 17 gallons.
Well, you
Wow.
need some fluids.
You need some fluids.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what we need. We need a little Moneylinc today. That's what we need. Good morning. It is Thursday morning, 7:30, which means guess what? It is time for that crazy duo, that financial set of wizards, Gayle and Steve Meeks on Moneylinc, brought to you by Interlinc. Take it away.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Rise and shine, sunshine.
That's right. Ready to get started for the day.
Yes. Yes. Well,
Nothing to kickstart your engine than talking about money.
right. Or put you to sleep.
I like how she started that. Right. Okay. So now that we've got that, I was just a fun sucker right there.
Fun sucker.
Yep. Good morning, everybody. Let's talk about money. Yep, there we go. There we go. And it's gone.
And it's gone. So today's show and all of our shows are sponsored by...
Right now, what you don't see behind the scenes is JP is literally blowing water out of his nose because he was taking a drink at the same time.
Okay, hold on a minute here. You can say sucking, but when I say moist, you lose your mind.
That's right.
I can't stand
She
them.
loses her mind.
That's right.
And she can make the
He does-
sound.
I'm
What was
gonna
that
tell you-
sound? I want to record that. Yeah, you just sucked the wind right out of this room.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I tend to do that a lot.
Yeah, this is a money show, right?
That's right. It's supposed to be. It's supposed to
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not.
Supposed to be.
Shush. No, I gotta go away again. Yeah.
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 be. New start on the day.
Uh-huh. So our sponsor loves this.
That's right. Sure you want to still be a sponsor
Exactly,
there, Brandon?
exactly.
All right.
So sponsor is Brandon Hager, our Medicare specialist. This is who we refer to all the time. He's very knowledgeable and has very Christian values, so he will do what's right by you. You can contact him by calling 940-781-0359. So we're going to do Steve's Swami moment first, which is just questions from the audience that if anybody has any questions, put them in the comments. Today's question is from Michelle, our one of our maniacs. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. All right. So her question is it better to do a 15-year mortgage at 2.25% or a 30-year mortgage at 3%? Steve, take it away.
Well, Gayle, we get this question a lot, actually.
We do.
This
We
is
really
why
do.
Michelle, I'm really glad you asked this, is when we look at mortgages, and it's really about philosophy more than, well, somewhat about the finance, but we got to put it in context with what you might doing and your life itself. And what I mean is about giving you the most flexibility financially in your life.
Right. I know a lot emotionally people want to do the 15-year because they think, okay, my house is going to be paid off. But
right.
So there's a difference between, the actual numbers and emotional finance.
Exactly. And, there's one philosophy that, be completely debt-free, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's not.
At all. Just pay.
As long as it doesn't torpedo you.
Yeah. But you look at that, we just have a different balance of it. We still believe in being debt free.
Yes.
I mean that's the
Yes.
thing on how we approach that might be a little bit different, and so understanding the different points of view, Michelle, might help answer this question more succinctly for you. As we go through this.
And when Steve says debt free, we look at it a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have, I don't know, I'm just going to pull a number out of the air, $750,000 in your retirement accounts, and you owe $200,000 or $150,000 on your mortgage, are you debt free? Or are you just choosing to use money in a different way, still being debt free?
Yeah, and that's what we kind of look at is, for us, we still see that position as being debt free because you are capable at any given time to write that check and be debt free.
Right. You're just choosing to be more strategic with how you handle your finances.
As we look at these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things also, you talk about financial freedom, which is you hear that a lot in the lexicon. And what we try to do, we also believe in that concept, but for us, financial freedom is more about having a lot of financial options.
Yes.
You might still have debt on your that you pay, but when something hits the fan, you want to have a lot of things financially to make decisions to try and help navigate that emergency or that unknown.
Right.
So when we look at mortgages, Michelle, that's one of the things about this. There's many, many, many different types of mortgages. There could be 15-year loans, which you're talking about, 30-year loans, jumbo loans, balloon payment loans. All of these things come into play.
Mm-hmm.
And the question that we always ask our clients, or when we teach our classes, is if the bank made the same amount of money on every single loan, then how many loans would they really have?
Exactly.
And, 100% of the time they'll say, well, there should be only one loan.
Right.
Well, wouldn't you like to know what the bank makes the most money on and what the least money on? Because they're the one offering you the loan.
And wouldn't you want to know why the bank would prefer you pay it off sooner?
And so when we look at these things, you have the concept, which we'll get to possibly, about loan versus compound interest.
Mm-hmm.
But let's look at the 15-year loan. Now, they're going to charge you a lower interest rate, which on the surface you say, okay, that's good, because I'll pay less interest over time, and that financially is a true statement.
Yes.
And when we look at these things, let's say, take a look, as I did a quick calculation on that. Assuming it's a $300,000 mortgage, a 30-year loan would be about $1,200 a month, roughly, just on the principal and interest. A 15-year loan would be $2,000.
Right.
So here's the difference on how to help answer your question. Oh, that's okay, because I can switch back on the slide. But one of the things is, what do you do with that extra money?
Mm-hmm.
See, if you personally, and more often than not, believe it or not, we recommend, in general,
Mm-hmm.
not for everybody,
Right.
but I'll tell you the reasonings behind that thought process is we usually recommend a 30-year mortgage,
Usually. Mm-hmm.
for most families. And, there's a pushback on that. So they said, I don't want to be paying something for 30 years.
Right.
But what we're really getting at is you having control
Mm-hmm.
over your financial position.
You have the options.
You have the options.
You're not letting the bank dictate.
Exactly. The bank will dictate. When you pick a 15-year mortgage, the bank is determining the payment
Mm-hmm.
at that time,
Yes.
forevermore on
Mm-hmm.
both situations. However, with a 15-year mortgage, you are locked into that.
That's right.
And if something happens in your financial world, you lose your job,
Mm-hmm.
or something goes on where
Which we saw a lot this year.
we did.
Mm-hmm.
And it did happen, many years ago in 2008.
Right.
You're locked into that payment.
That's right.
But with a 30-year mortgage, what's nice about that is that you can always accelerate the payment
Yes, you can.
and still pay it off in 15 years if you
So
want.
you have the option.
Yeah,
The bank's not dictating, you are.
You have that flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
And so also, whereas with that, something happens wrong financially,
Mm-hmm.
you can now pull back
Correct.
and still stick with the lower payment, which is probably in your better interest, because your job has been, hampered. Your cash flow has been, something's gotten in the way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier to make the $1,200 payment than the $2,000 payment.
Exactly.
So usually with that, we really recommend the 30-year,
Mm-hmm.
if that fits for you. Not saying don't pay it off in 15 years. If that works for you, great. But I'd rather have you in control of that payment, your family and your household, not the bank telling you that. So don't focus just on the interest alone and how much you would save. You got to look at the bigger picture.
Right. You'll notice we're more about making sure you have options. You're not locked into one certain thing. because life doesn't happen like that.
Yeah. And maybe as you look at this, also, let's say you're capable of easily making the $200 payment or the $2,000 payment instead of the $1,200. That's an $800 a month spread.
Right.
Well, what if you took that $800 and just paid yourself to put it into an account that could grow?
That's true.
And so in this case, you're kind of doing two things at the same time. You're still paying your house off. You're getting full advantage of the maximum tax benefits you can get because you're on the 30-year mortgage. So if you have a 3% interest loan, when you count your tax break, it's probably net 2.75, something like that, maybe a little less. That's almost free money. Almost, yes. Yeah. Now,
so look, if you're getting interest in that additional amount that you would have paid in an account, then you're outperforming.
Yeah. And these are the things that we'll kind of show in a second. When we do, I think it would be a good idea to kind of go over compound and loan interest.
Yeah, I do
on
too.
that. But before we get into that, not in a minute, before you get into that, that's why when you look at the banks, they'll focus on one side of that coin, but not really show you the other side of what you could be losing or giving up.
Right.
Again, with the finances, there's always two sides to the story. For every decision you make, you're going to give up something else. So really with that's why we kind of lean towards more the 30-year. I hope that answers your question, Michelle, unless you're absolutely positive that the 15-year is something that, you could pay off. But again, you're going to lose something on the back end. And this is what we'll show you in a second.
Well, I also know in past episodes we've explained inflation at plus around 3%. And if you think about it, so say your mortgage payment's $1,500 a month, right?
Right.
So it doesn't go up. It's going to stay the same at $1,500 every single month.
That's right.
30 years from now, if you had put 3% inflation on that, it would be what? How much would you say that would be?
Oh, the buying power of it?
Yeah.
Would be almost 3 times less.
Right.
And that's a great point is inflation. When you look at because the value of your dollar, and here's again how we want you thinking as business owners for those of you listening. Inflation is going to be a constant. Actually, the Federal Reserve, the nation's banker, they have it in their
mandate.
Yeah, their mandate that they could have at least a 2% inflation. We're in unique times right now, but their job is to make sure that the value of that dollar that you hold is less and less over time.
That's right.
So the question that we would ask as we go through this and to think about it, which was a great point, Gayle, was that if the most valuable your dollar is going to be is today.
It's today.
Tomorrow it's going to be worth less.
That's right.
So do you want to give the bank your most valuable dollar or your least valuable dollar?
Right. Which, 30 years from now, if you still have $1,500 a month, it's your least valuable dollar.
Yeah. And so one of the reasons that the banks offer so many different loans and talk about the interest that you'll save is because their objective is to get that money back into their coffers as fast as possible so that they can rewrap it and send it back out.
Which is why they push you and they say, hey, look how much interest you can save, which again is a true statement, but you have to look at it from a different standpoint.
Exactly. And also this type of concept about taking a 30-year mortgage or a 15-year mortgage, it always will determine what era we're talking about.
Right.
Because in 1980-82, a 30-year mortgage was 18%. Not 2. Or 3.
Right.
So that's a whole different way to approach that.
A different conversation.
And so that's a lot of where those things kind of happened is let's pay this thing off because the interest treatment could be, staggering.
Right.
So let's show the difference between compound and loan interest
Okay.
for you, Michelle, and maybe some of the other viewers as we go through this, kind of see if I can kind of bring a module up to kind of show that. And
Steve's getting graphic again.
Yeah.
It's graphic moment.
Going to get a little graphic to kind of help look at this.
Look at all those modules.
I know it's a lot to kind of keep this up. Okay, so let's look at this simplistically.
Okay.
On one side,
I love this slide.
And one of the things that people aren't aware of is the difference in compound and loan interest. So, for example, on the top here, that is $30,000. Let's say you had an account that had $30,000 in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming that we're broadcasting, JP, because we don't have a signal here on the monitor here. So
It's good.
So
Yes, you're broadcasting.
okay.
This thing keeps phasing in and out.
Okay.
It's something Gayle says. I don't know.
Mhm.
So
It's always me.
Michelle, here's the thing. On the top one, take a look at this. Assume I have an account that has $30,000 in it, earning 5%.
I must have sucked it.
Okay. Over 5 years. As we're trying to be serious about this. But Michelle, we're done. Let's go ahead and go back to, so tell me what did you...
No.
No.
We did the graphic.
We have here.
It's up. Keep talking.
Made in China.
It's working.
All right, we got that.
All right.
Buy
go.
American. Okay, so when you look at this, Michelle, let's say you have an account that has $30,000 in it, earning 5%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, over 5 years, that's what this little number is down here, you would earn $8,500 in interest. Okay? Now imagine I had a loan of $30,000 paying 5% interest on that loan. How much interest would you pay? And down there, for those of you that can see that, it's $3,968.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between compound and loan interest is staggering. So that's why the bank will charge you a lower interest rate, because which side of the coin do you think they live on? The compound or the loan side?
Compound.
The compounding side. So that's the thing. So if you lock yourself into a larger mortgage payment, you now have limited resources to pay yourself and possibly earn compound interest in another way.
Exactly.
And for example, you had one mortgage that was $2,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
The other mortgage was, I think, $1,200 a month. There was an $800 spread.
Right. So take the 800 and save it.
Pay yourself.
Right.
And allow that to compound, and and how you do that and things. That's kind of where financial planners come into play.
Because
and
if
show
you're
you how to
if you're
allocate
able
that.
to spend or able to pay the additional 800, then we know you can save it.
Exactly, you can pay yourself, and that way you're kind of playing both sides of that system, where you have compound and loan interest working in your favor.
Exactly.
And so that's kind of what Gayle was talking about, to look at that. So in general, I would say take the 30-year mortgage, because interest rates are so low.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you more flexibility. If things don't go your way financially, you are locked into the lowest payment. Also, over time, you also are able to take advantage of the biggest tax benefit,
Right.
since you're on that one.
That's right.
I
I will say that when we speak with retired couples that have paid off their house, one of the things they say is, I wish I wouldn't have paid off my house, because I would love to have had that tax deduction.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
They were shocked at what they were getting. Now the tax laws will change, and
They will.
the impact of it, over time. But the biggest thing that we're looking at is financial options, and who do you want dictating the amount of cash flow in your household? You or the bank?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I'm going to say myself,
Of course.
because I can always accelerate the payment and pay it off. And then in this kind of over time, imagine you took that extra $800 and it was earning some interest. Well, at the end of 15 years, you look at two families,
Mm-hmm.
and you say you have one person that has a house paid off in 15 years.
Correct.
They have, and it's worth $300,000.
Mm-hmm.
And the other person decided to take the 30-year mortgage,
Mm-hmm.
and they owe, let's say, $150,000 left over. But because they were able to save the excess, paying themselves, and that's the critical part of this, let's say they had $200,000 in cash or liquid reserves earning interest.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the question you'd asked, are they both debt-free?
Right.
And the answer is yes. They're
Right,
both
they're just
debt-free.
Choosing to be more strategic.
But here's the difference. The one that paid the mortgage off in 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
they're both, he has $300,000 in assets
Right.
on paper. But if he gets in trouble financially, how do you access the money?
Sell your house or reverse mortgage.
Right. So the bank is now going to determine if you qualify for that loan. What if you lose your job?
It's true.
So it's on there, and the last thing you want to do if you're in a financial bind is sell your house. That's an emotional trauma that could happen. Now, the second person has a loan still, but he has larger liquid reserves.
Right.
So if something goes wrong, he can easily more weather the storm.
Now, that is if he saved the additional amount.
If he saved the additional amount.
So you have to be responsible and save the additional amount.
So I hope that kind of helped you with that question, Michelle. But in general, or helped you be able to ask a question for yourself to see what would be best for you.
Which works for you. Correct.
Yeah. So now from doing that, now you can see which way to go. Is it the 15-year mortgage or the 30-year mortgage? And like I said, in general, for us, we're always going to weigh on the side of more flexibility.
Right. Flexibility is good in all sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. To kind of do all of that. So as we kind of go through this.
Steve just cut his eyes at me.
Yeah. So when we look at these things, that I hope that helps you. And also make sure that you stay flexible.
Yes.
So
flexibility is a good
does hot yoga come into this?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Sweating and flexibility. Yeah.
Hot yoga.
Hot. HAWT.
Any way that we can offer
HAWT hot yoga.
Any way, Michelle, that we can help you in your financial world or other things that you can elaborate at. Remember,
yoga.
Flexibility
flexibility.
Because flexibility could help you in all areas of your life.
Yes. All areas.
Here at Moneylinc.
So you guys could almost say like you're yoga masters.
Yeah, we try.
Yogi. Yogi.
Yogi masters?
Yeah. Namaste.
Yeah.
Namaste.
There you go. Namaste. And on that note, adios.
Adios. Arrivederci. Well, I can't say the rest of that.
No, you can't.
So
Actually, we're not FCC mandated.
No, we're not.
But this is a morning show.
It is a morning show.
True. It's true. Okay.
So right now there's kids going, Mom, what does that mean about flexibility?
And arrivederci?
Yeah, so leave it that.
Yes, we'll leave it there. All right. Well, Michelle, I'm so happy that we were able to answer that question for you in Steve's Swami moment. Woo. Thank you for asking questions. And if you guys have any questions, please put them down because in your comments, because we will definitely answer those for you. Social Security.
That's a big one.
It's big.
Yeah, it's a very big topic. So
we do a lot of seminars with Social Security, taxes, and retirement, and what have you. In fact, we've been doing several this year, this last quarter.
Yeah, as a transition. Yeah.
So almost one every week, aside from holiday weeks.
Yeah, I'm surprised at how
we're busy.
Yeah, a lot of people are now showing up. Coming out from
yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
We're also supporting local restaurants too, which we don't normally we do them on just, in a classroom setting, but we decided to go ahead and support the local restaurants because of COVID and, how much they were hurt by having to close and what have you. So we're actually very happy that there have been a lot of attendees and it's been working out really well. Yeah. So anyway, Social Security.
Well, one of the things that before we get into the essence of, and this again might apply to some of you and some not as far as Social Security, and the things about Social Security that's interesting is disability and Social Security. There could be some of you that are listening that are disabled and
on Social Security disability.
And on Social Security disability.
I think it's called SSDI.
Yeah, and simplistically understand that there fundamentally is no difference between Social Security disability and Social Security as far as the check.
Check, right.
So a lot of people
getting it earlier than retirement.
Don't you agree?
Mm-hmm.
We get that a lot in our classes.
Yeah, we do.
The questions that they think they're two separate organizations.
Right.
That the disability part, okay, I'm taking my disability check, and then when I turn 62 or whatever, then I'll get this other check in addition to my disability.
Yeah, it just converts.
Yeah, and
it's
so
not how it works.
So yeah, remember that. Basically, what they're going to do is, if you are taking a disability check right now, is when you turn 62 and you're eligible of age for Social Security, they just basically switch the label on the check.
Mm-hmm.
Your check is going to be exactly the same. So there's no difference or add-ons, just to kind of take that off. Because a lot of people do have that misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And they're working with the administration and they're
That's
not
right.
clear on it.
So basics about Social Security.
Well, one of the things that we talk about with Social Security before we get into the basics is it going to be around? Yeah.
A lot of
we
people
talk
think
about-
it's not going to be.
A lot of people don't think so.
Mhm.
And we talk about that stuff a lot. And, I remember when, 20, 30 years ago, we didn't think there was going to be any for us. And I'm sure the, millennial generation says no way.
Right.
But how do they keep that stuff solvent so that there's a check for, grandparents, mom and dad, for us? Because it's part of that financial forecasting.
Exactly.
And they did it in many, many ways. The first thing is way back in the 30s,
Mm-hmm.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt put this in play.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, that we're going to have this social safety net and Social Security for families. And the reason it came about was the Great Depression.
Right.
They wanted to have something in there. And again, it was not meant to be the end all and be all, but it was at least to give you some money that would come in possibly as a social net to pay for goods and services that you might need. So, and it's become a very, very critical part of people's financial plan, that foundation. The interesting thing is back then, they were saying, when am I eligible for 100% of benefits?
Mm-hmm.
And back then, the age was 65 years of age. And
Why is that?
Well, it was great back then. They actually they came up with that number. It was from a mathematician from Germany at the time. They said, "Oh, that's kind of when retirement was back then." So they said, "Hey, we'll use 65."
Right.
But it really worked good mathematically because the average life expectancy back in the 30s was 55. So
they never really had to pay it out.
They never really had to pay it out, because at that point, and we know that people are living longer,
Yes,
and over
they are.
time they are. So here's how they keep it solvent. One is they extend the age in which you're eligible for full retirement benefits.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be 65 years of age. Then it became 65 and 3 months years of age, 65 and 4 months.
And that's what they call the full retirement age, or FRA.
Yeah, that's what they called it. And then it turned into age 66.
Mm-hmm.
For our generation, it'll be 67.
Mm-hmm.
Millennials, I don't know. Age 85, I don't know. It's when you'll be full retirement age. You can't tell.
Age 479.
Exactly.
But it'll be
As
there.
they continue to lay on the couch in the basement
absolutely.
of their great-great-great-grandmother.
Then it'll happen. It'll happen.
Oh, Lord.
It'll happen.
Okay.
Don't-
I just
Don't
want
get
y'all to
me
know
started. You
that
woke me up, by the way.
I just want y'all to know that we love millennials, and there are several millennials that are really good people. Just want you to know. They're not all in the basement.
Only several?
Only several. I was about ready to say, actually,
Okay.
I'm going to stop talking now.
millions.
Go ahead and tell me.
There's
Gayle.
millions
Tell
of
me.
millennials.
For those offended, that is.
I love my millennials.
For those offended, that's Gayle, Gayle at interlinkfinancial.com.
Please email her on a regular basis if you're a millennial. Only several of you are good.
That's right. Only several of you are good.
Twister. These guys are twisting my... It's 2 against 1.
No, I'm just watching.
What are you watching?
I'm watching
You're
I'm watching you.
We're both
Talk
watching.
about millennials.
Yeah. There's several of them anyways.
There's
Y'all
a
are
few
gonna
of you.
get
Out,
it.
there's a few of you out there.
You're going to get it.
There's a few of you out there that are just okay.
I'm back out. No, several. There were several, but I got to go before I get
That's
killed.
several.
Mhm.
I'm leaving before you, Steve.
So they
The blood trail.
Yeah. So they extend the
Will-
age out, because we're living longer, so it's okay.
Okay.
All right. The next thing to keep it solvent, because some people might say, when that Social Security check comes or when you're eligible, they just want to take it now before the government runs out of money. It's been robbed. The coffers have been robbed. You hear all of this stuff out there about Social Security. It's going to run out of money. I always rely also on the next most important thing. Usually in any election season, which we just completed, it really doesn't matter. Traditionally, it's the people of an older age demographic who are going to vote.
Right.
And I find it hard to believe that any that age demographic is somebody, if any president or congressman or senator said, I'm going to take away the money from your Social Security check right now,
They're not voting for
They're
them.
not voting for that person, so there's always self-reservation.
Right.
The FICA tax that's in there that, you
It
pay
starts
into,
going up.
it'll go up a little bit.
Right. It has gone up a little
It has
bit.
gone up, to make sure it's solvent. And most important, you look at demographics and population. You look at, we've always known the baby boomer generation was the biggest population group, hence the name baby boomers.
Right.
And they've dictated forevermore what was popular.
Right.
In music, in movies, on clothing and cars, because that was the biggest block.
Right.
Up until now.
That's right.
And that is when the millennials have officially kind of taken over as far as the largest group. So the millennial generation is actually bigger than the baby boom generation, which means that as economy gets stronger and better and all this generation comes into the workforce, you now have people working to put money into the coffers. You have the FICA tax going up.
Right.
We're extending the time that you're eligible for full retirement benefits, which is okay because we're living longer.
Which, so basically they're taking steps to make sure that Social Security is going to be around.
Yeah. And the other thing is that you hear, that unfortunately when you hear these things is they're going to run out of money.
What was it, 2035
yeah,
or something
you
like
hear
that?
all
You're going to
these-
be Social Security is going to be bankrupt.
Yeah, and that's this is always if no changes are made.
Right.
But then they also say that when they're talking about that stuff, it's not that you're not going to get a check. There'll be a reduction in the check you get. You ever notice that they always miss that part, Gayle?
Right.
When we hear that?
I mean, nobody wants a reduction either, but
Yeah, they don't want a reduction, but the way they talk about it, it's
gonna
almost
be gone.
like your $2,000 a month check just
Right.
disappeared.
exactly.
So, but all of those parts and pieces as we get into Social Security and what these are, the first thing is it's going to be there. And yes, it will.
It'll be there.
All those parts, and for us, with our generation, we're Generation X, so we're kind of stuck in between.
We're the sandwich
Yeah, we're the
generation.
sandwich. So we'll just watch the millennials yell at the baby boomers, and we'll just kind of
We're the
take a side
flavor of the sandwich.
That's why I said don't make the millennials
We're the peanut
upset.
butter and jelly of the sandwich.
That's it. That's us. Here we are.
Wow.
You ever looked at that way?
Oh, wow. She just said we were the flavor.
We are the flavor.
Wow.
So let's go what we should.
So are we like
First of all-
liverwurst? I mean,
No.
So
No.
we're the
We're peanut butter
flavor,
and jelly.
and of all the millennials that she's met, she's
Several.
about three or four are okay.
it's separate.
I'm going to stop talking now.
Good morning, everybody.
Gotta go.
That's all right.
Thursday coffee.
It was-
It's calling me.
no,
Bye-bye.
that's fine.
Oh, my.
that's
Oh,
good.
my. All right, so where do you get your statements? They don't mail them out anymore.
No, you remember when we were young, we used to get them all the time.
Every year.
Every
Yeah,
year.
every year.
It just got too expensive. And this is really, really important. Even if you're not, and this is the housekeeping item. For those of you that are not eligible for Social Security, I still need you, or we both need you to look at your Social Security statement.
So how do you get it?
And you would go to ssa.gov.
Right.
And you log in.
Mm-hmm. Create an account.
Yep, you create an account. They don't mail them like they used to because it got too expensive. So
Right.
that's where you log in and get an account and get your
So
PDF.
now what they say is they'll mail you them every 5 years,
Mhm.
not every year.
Yeah,
So between ages 25 and 60.
on important years.
Do you
So-
need?
I
Do you
think
need
I think we have a
You have a
question.
question?
We have a question from the audience.
The audience has a question.
The audience
Oh.
has a question.
Yeah. Cleburne's back there. He has a question.
Okay.
All right, Cleburne.
Cleburne says, why does the federal government have to pay for postage when they're the federal government? Why can't they mail them things out for free? Because I don't do the internet.
The interweb.
The interweb.
Thank
Or
you,
the
Cleburne,
inter-
for your question.
Yes, thank you, Cleburne. That's a good question.
And
Well, because the federal post office is a separate entity
it is
altogether.
a separate entity. In fact, it's designed to kind of, hopefully, even though they need help financially a lot, it's designed to, as best as possible, run on its own.
Correct.
It's kind of it's a modified pseudo privatized side.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they still have to pay
Pseudo.
for the postage. Yeah, and I say pseudo. It's part of the government. Postmaster General and all that division, but
Mhm.
it has to watch its budgets and things a little bit more closely than other agencies.
See, that's what I had heard.
Yeah,
they're quasi-governmental.
Mhm.
Yeah, quasi-governmental.
And they have a certain type of power that is given to them
Right.
through, and I can't remember that pass-through term that they use, to avoid the federal government.
Right. Yeah, and so that's why the postage and the stamps and all that stuff, and that's why they have to go back to the government and go, hey, we got to raise the cost of the postage stamp because we need to make more money
Right.
and things like that. So when we found that on the interweb, right?
Yes, the interweb.
So
So on the interweb, you go to www.ssa.gov.
and that's where you get your statement.
Right. You'll have to create an account. Now, here's the thing. When you go in to create the account, they're going to ask you all sorts of security questions. Make sure you get those accurate and correct, because then they'll lock you out after you tried so many times. And they're going to know things like what color was the car that you drove in 1988. That's kind of crazy and creepy,
Yep, but they know it.
but they know it. I mean, heck yeah.
Just the fact all that information is out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so you really have to take your time answering those questions. Don't rush through them when you
Right.
log in, because if you get locked out multiple times, then you have to go into the Social Security office directly
Mm-hmm.
to get your statement.
Now, there are many things that you need to know when you decide to take your Social Security.
Well, one of the things that we should let our listeners know is that, and this is why even I don't care if you're 40 or 50 or 30, check your Social Security statement.
Right.
And the reason that's important is because of that earnings record.
Yes, it is.
It's incredibly important.
So how do they calculate it?
Well, one of the things is before the calculation is just knowing what's on there. And
Well,
how
the reason why the earnings record is important is because of how they calculate it.
Yeah, they put all those averages together of your working history to determine how big your Social Security check is. And when that form, when you download it, the first page that most people will go to is how big is the check that I'm going to get.
Correct.
And that's actually not the most important part of your statement.
Right.
The most important part of your statement is your earnings history. And we can kind of, to show that, I don't know, do we have a graphic on that? I think we do. Real quick.
I'm sure we do.
Let's see
Social
here.
Security statement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, let me bring this one up real quick.
you're going to get graphic.
I'm going to get graphic. Okay, everybody, if you can see on the screen, this right here, your earnings record, it's a history of how much you made each year over time.
And this is on your Social Security statement.
Yes, this is like the third page.
Mm-hmm.
This, of anything you listen to on Social Security, double check this page, because they look at this history, then run it through this little government formula to determine how big your check's going to be.
Right.
Now, the reason Gayle and I paused on this just to kind of take our time and explain this to you is here's what happens. You're working and you're paying your taxes and you're doing everything you're supposed to do. And the IRS is supposed to notify the Social Security system how much you made that year and paid into Social Security taxes. And so one governmental division is supposed to contact the other one and say this is what they did. And that's how the Social Security Administration knows what to put on that earnings history.
Right.
And Gayle, do you think there's ever a breakdown in that
No.
communication?
No, never.
It's amazing on how Gayle and I have been doing this for many, many, many years. And we teach these classes, and inevitably
We've taught a lot of. How many classes would you say we taught?
Oh, I've lost count, hundreds, if not more.
Yeah.
But in
Every class.
there's at least one person where this has occurred. So what they do is you take your earnings history, all those years, then they average them together and come up with this formula. We don't want to get the mechanics of that right now. It's not time for that yet. But
But in every class, there's always somebody
Yeah.
that has a zero where there should be income.
yeah, let's say you made $60,000 that year, and your Social Security earnings history says zero.
Right.
Well, if there's a zero there when you really made $60,000 that year, what happens to your paycheck? It's going to be
Well,
less.
since that year is in your calculation, it's going to be less.
It's going to lower the average that they use, which will then lower your Social Security check that you'll be due.
Correct.
Now, the reason this is important, no matter what age you are, to check this as you go, is if there's a zero there where you made money, there's a form to be filled out to get that corrected. You don't have to have your tax returns. The IRS has that. But sometimes they'll only allow you to fix that within 3 years of history.
So make sure you check it every year.
Yeah, this is why you need to double check these things, And we've seen, people come into our office where there was a zero there, but it was from 10 or 15 years ago. And there's really nothing that can be done in those stages sometimes.
They try, but sometimes
they try.
Sometimes they won't let them
and
do
so
it.
they're stuck with a lower Social Security check than what they would have received. So don't ignore that. I think that's just kind of a good thing to be aware of, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Because I didn't think about that. And then when I started as we taught these things and you learn about the systems, always check that.
How do they calculate it?
Well, when you look at that, what they do is, and let's see if I got, that might be another graphic. Let's see what we have here.
Getting all graphic on
I'm going
us.
to get all graphic on us here. All right, so here's what we got, guys. So what they're going to do, and this is why that earnings history is so important, because we want to make sure that, whatever your Social Security check is, and we're big on this. I don't care if it's $1. That's $1 that's yours and should be coming into your household. So we want to double check all those things. But what they do is they take that earnings history, then they take the top 35 years and adjust that for inflation. So you see why this is important. If there's a zero there and you really worked that year, and they do that multiple times over your 35 years of working history, that can really, lower the check that you actually were due.
That's right.
And when they do that average, it'll come up what's called an average index monthly earnings.
AIM.
These are just all the government
Acronyms,
government terms.
They love their acronyms.
Yeah, when we teach the classes, we're going to go more and more in depth on these things, kind of like that. But basically they do this to tell you how big is your check that you'll receive when you're eligible for full retirement benefits, which is what that FRA is. So this is what goes on. The formula changes, can change every year. It will change every year based on cost of living adjustments. But basically the crux of that is make sure you check that earnings history and do it periodically over your lifetime.
So this is the calculation that you come up with your PIA for your AI. Do that one.
That graphic?
No, just your words that you usually say.
Oh, well, a lot of
government formula.
Yeah, it is a government formula, and every government formula is going to have their own little acronyms. Being a veteran, we got kind of used to hearing all these things that, initials and things meaning for words. And so let me go ahead and show the formula real quick just to show this here, JP, if you could, on the little graphic. Here's the thing. And it's not just to kind of get all into the math of this stuff, but just so you really need to check your earnings history. What they do is they take that average of the 35 years, and those are called 3 bend points. And so from there, once they get that average, they take 90% of the first $960, plus 32% of anything from $960 to $5,785, plus 15% of any amount over $5,785 to come up with your primary insurance amount, which is the check that you'll receive, which is how they come up with that benefit on your Social Security statement.
Right.
So going back, if you look at that, does that look like a government formula to you?
Yeah. Big time.
So basically what Gayle was saying is you come up with your AIM to come up with the PIA, which they use to see what's determined at your FRA. It's wacky.
It is.
It's wacky. And again, we look at these things just to kind of give you these little nuggets, these informational nuggets, so that you don't get caught down the road. And we just wanted to get you the biggest check that's possible. So make sure you check that stuff as we go through. That I would say. That's
right. So when you're paid by Social Security, do you get it like on the 1st and 15th like you normally would for like a job, or some people get paid once a month, like the 15th of every month? Or?
Yeah, it's really interesting about that because, when that day comes, you want a budget and you want to know when that check is going to come in.
Yeah, so for those of you that are
So-
like on the precipice of retiring and getting your Social Security, you may need to know when your check's coming,
Yeah.
so you can, budget appropriately.
And so for that stuff, it's actually going to depend what date you're born. Like, my birthday's on the 17th, and
Mhm.
so yours is on the 5th. So if your birth date, the day you were born, is anywhere between the 1st and the 10th, the Social Security check is going to come into your household on the second Wednesday of the month. So
Payday.
it's always going to come in on Wednesdays.
Payday.
If you come in and you're born between from the 11th to the 20th, it's on the third Wednesday of the month. So when
Mhm.
it's time for us to start receiving Social Security check,
We'll
one
get
of those,
mine first,
and then mine will be
and
second.
yours second.
Yeah.
the
so
next week.
So then we know how that will budget with our cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
And if your birth date goes beyond the 21st or more, that'll show up on the fourth Wednesday of the month. So that's kind of those little nuggets on when those things kind of happen.
Nuggets.
Yep.
Love that word.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of informational. Tell me, what do you like about nuggets?
Well, I have to be honest. I have a bad brain that thinks about all bad things when you
Really?
Yes, you
say
do.
nuggets.
Yes, you
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Really, Stephen?
She
Really?
started it. I was like, so tell us what exactly does go through
There's
your
Yes,
mind?
Gayle,
There's a
what
hockey,
does go through
there's
your
a
mind,
hockey
Gayle?
team. His name's Nuggets, and I'm like, how? Why? Why did they call that hockey team the Nuggets?
The Nuggets.
I just don't get it. I mean, I know it was gold and all that stuff, but hello,
You talking about a hockey team or a basketball team?
was it hot? Was
No,
it
it's basketball.
Oh, it's basketball.
The Denver Nuggets.
The Denver
Denver
Nuggets.
Nuggets?
Yeah. Oh, geez.
Really?
I'm back.
Why would you call them? Why would you name your team the Nuggets?
Basketball, hockey.
I mean, it is
work.
men's, but
Yeah,
come
yeah,
on.
sure. So when we look at these things, it's memorable. You think of it.
I guess so.
It became-
Well,
it-
yeah, apparently I think of it a lot.
You think of it a lot. It became one way to get fans, and maybe it's your favorite team now. I don't know.
No,
It's not your favorite team.
I don't like thinking about other people's Nuggets.
Okay. Well, that's
She
good.
thought
That's
they were
good
a
to know,
hockey
everybody.
team.
Thank you
Well,
so much for
I
Hockey,
mean-
there.
basketball.
All the same, they all play on the
Yeah,
ice.
Yeah.
yeah.
on a court.
There's a court. There's a net.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a puck and a ball.
Stay with money.
Sticks
Stick with money.
Stick with
hands.
money.
Sticks and hands.
On the
See, you're way good with financial
On the-
plan. Stick with money.
Okay.
On the
Okay.
sport.
I
on
like money.
And it likes you.
So,
on
cola.
the sports segment at Moneylinc.
Cola. What's a
what?
cola mean?
Well,
It's not diet cola.
Well, when we look at this stuff, cost of living adjustments, and with Social Security, again, we always are going to come back to this stuff. It's inflation,
Mm-hmm.
and inflation on average should be around 3%. Don't say what the government says it is. More what the reality is.
Why?
Yeah, 'cause
Why?
so-
What did the government do?
Well, and we had talked about this on a previous episode.
Mm-hmm.
Is there used to be a very popular Federal Reserve chairman whose name was Alan Greenspan.
Was there forever?
Yeah, he was there forever, and he was the nation's banker. And during the Clinton administration,
Federal Reserve Chairman.
yep, Federal Reserve chairman. And usually it's that person that's usually the most powerful, the one that's kind of taking care of the money and figuring
Mhm.
that stuff out.
Right.
And what they did is they make tweaks to how they calculate what inflation is, and they're thinking about doing it again now. Whether that will make I
Right.
would have to assume that the government will adjust or do a calculation in a way where they have to pay out less money.
I talked about
Yeah.
nuggets, and look what happened.
Yep. See what happened?
I mean,
What happened?
the screen went crazy again because
It
I talked
did.
about nuggets.
Mm-hmm. There we go.
Oh,
We're back.
and we're back.
We're back.
See, I just had to talk about it again. All right.
Nugget.
Nugget.
You both are nuggets.
Nuggets.
Let's move. I haven't eaten lunch. Let's move this on.
No.
I'm tired. I'm done tired talking
You
about
mean
nuggets.
breakfast?
No, I got up at 12 midnight.
Oh,
Oh,
I've been up working all night. I'm ready
Gotcha.
for lunch.
gotcha. Okay.
double nugget.
Listen,
Are you going to eat a peanut butter and jelly
Nugget.
sandwich?
maybe after I eat my nuggets.
I don't even know what they taste like. So, okay, go ahead.
Family pack nuggets.
Family.
Social Security nuggets.
There we go.
Oh,
Right.
That's what we were talking
There we go.
about. Social Security, COLA.
Cola,
That's what we're doing.
Diet Cola.
Yeah, so we look at these things, and what they did at that time is they basically stopped counting or considering, there's a better way to say it, considering the cost of gas and the cost of food.
Right.
And traditionally, the two things that are going to go up are
Gas and food.
Gas and food. And when they took that out of the equation, it's called a core inflation rate now. It's a lower number. And so, even though the government's not considering it, people are still driving and eating.
Right.
So you really shouldn't expect your Social Security check to keep up with what real inflation is.
Right.
Usually when we put this together, it's about, what do we put? About 1.5%.
1.5%.
Yeah, 1.5%.
Yeah.
Because what'll happen is you'll get about a 1.5, maybe, it'll skip a few years and then suddenly the government will come in and do a 2.9.
Right.
But the average over time.
Well, in 2020, they did 1.6, right?
Yeah. And next year, actually, the pay raise is going to be about 1.3 is what they're going to do.
2019, they did 2.9.
2.9, that was the big boost. And they did that because the previous years were so small.
Right.
There were some years where
2% in 2018, 0.3.
See, that's the surprising
in
one.
2017.
In 2017, I think the year before that, it was 0. But,
but like a 4-year average is 1.7%.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we try, and it keeps us in that 1.5. And when we're forecasting and we're working with families, that's why we kind of undershoot on how much money will be there and overshoot on expenses, because that's kind of how life works. Less money coming in, more money needed to go out, and kind of balancing those things out.
Right.
But, and again, when you're working with a financial planner, this is why you don't want to look at all the things, and we just hit the surface of Social Security. And so some advisors out there might not be as well versed in all the little nuances and how that can affect you.
Right.
And it shouldn't be just tabled and very simply say, just go get your check when you need it. Because there's
so many strategies to getting the biggest, and then how does it work within your world?
Yeah, and what your neighbor did and what you should do would be two different things. And so...
And there's so many people that come in and they say, well, my friend said to do it this way.
Right.
And, well, does your friend have the same financial picture that you do?
Exactly. And so when we sit down with families, that's why I think we're the most, when we guide them, once we put all those pieces together and then we sit down in the office and then you look at that up on a big screen, and now you can kind of just almost jumps off the screen in a way to see what is the best way for you.
Which is part of why we do those seminars. It's so if they decide that they want to come into our office to get like a more personalized, how do I file my Social Security for my situation, we have a software that we put it through that will completely analyze everything to make sure that we guide them in the best way for their particular situation. And
that's also why when you hear you can hear with firms, in most firms, it's a complimentary consultation and things like that.
Yeah.
We sit down and we do that because we don't even know if we can help. And
exactly.
it's more important to just sit down, see where you're at, look at these pieces, fit them together, and then see, without changing a thing, not making recommendations or anything like that, just not changing a thing, seeing what that road looks like if nothing changes, and then from there, maybe seeing if there's holes or gaps or things like that.
Right.
So for most, and this is kind of how we approach it. And some, like I said, there's going to be some people, some advisors that will pay more close attention to this, some that don't. But hopefully today and today's episode, you've kind of learned about the little nuances and why that's important.
Absolutely.
Because, it's your money. You've put it into the system. This is what it was for. It's designed to be a benefit for the American people. But it's still a government organization, and there's going to be mistakes. The IRS isn't going to talk to the Social Security Administration sometimes and tell them how much you made that year, which can affect your check. For those of you on disability, and you have that, it's not really two separate divisions. You're not going to get a disability check and a Social Security check one day.
Right.
So now you know how that game is played. They're just going to kind of change that over. And then also because the government will determine how they calculate inflation.
Yes.
There's a core inflation rate, and then there's reality.
Right.
And so understanding how that comes together and will this fit for you? And so this is why, if anybody does have these questions, they can reach out to us. And we've been
How do they contact us?
The phone number is 214-778-5645.
214-778-5645.
Or you can also contact Gayle, Gayle, at Interlinc with a C, interlinkfinancial.com. It's Gayle at interlinkfinancial.com.
Gayle, Gayle, at Interlinc with a C, financial.com.
Yep. And
So I've got a question.
sure.
Okay. I've got an answer.
You do.
Nuggets?
Only if they're moist.
Okay.
Don't like dry nuggets.
And that
That's
is
right back at you there, Meeks.
okay. And that is JP at JP Kathy and the Crew Network that you can send that.
So for those of you
information
that
to,
don't
for those
know,
of you
like,
that just had that image, as
That's
you started
on my
the-
disallowed word
absolutely.
list.
Yeah.
Moist. I can't stand it.
Absolutely.
Blah.
For all complaints,
to take you on your
contact
day.
Gayle at
That's right.
Gayle.
So we have a listing of millennials can contact. Moist. We have.
Yeah, all
I love my
nuggets.
millennials.
That's right.
Yeah, the several of them.
The Denver Nuggets.
So I have a question though about Social Security.
Okay.
I don't have a financial advisor. I don't have a financial planner.
Okay.
I don't have any of that. I've gone through my life. I've saved my pennies back. I've got it. I can have a decent retirement income as long as I get my Social Security.
Right.
Is there somebody at Social Security people can call? Do they have like helpers, or are you just jacked?
Well, here's and that's a
That's a
fantastic
fantastic question.
Because here's the thing. By law, the Social Security Administration and the people there can
Can't give you
provide
advice.
limited guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they tell you exactly what to do as invest in your financial world, you lean into the legal definition of advice.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times when basically you can call them, give them your Social Security number, and they can tell you how much check you're eligible for. Anything beyond that, that's why you really need to talk with someone that's well versed in these things. That's a fantastic question, because you assume government check, government program, the government
They can tell
people
you
are
how
going
to
to
do
help
it.
me.
Right.
But they're limited on what they can do.
Because, it makes sense because they're liable for the recommendation that they give you, and they don't want to be liable for that.
Exactly. And unfortunately, and we have this all the time, we've had people call the administration 3 times with the same question.
Remember that one lady in one of our
answers.
classes?
Yeah.
Tell them about that.
Yeah, one of them was she was a spouse and had never worked, so didn't have a
Earnings
history.
Mm-hmm.
But the rules say that she's eligible for a spousal benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And she was in our class. And she called the Social Security Administration 3 times to give them her situation, and every time they told her she wasn't eligible for a check. And then after, when we were talking, she started crying in the back of the room when she found out the answer was wrong.
Right.
And we helped guide her through that to say, no, you have a check coming to you. And that's one of the best things about having these classes is when something like that happens.
Yeah, we can help them.
It does.
So good.
Just in that little way to help give them some options as we go through that. But JP, I wish it was that straightforward.
I do too. Yeah. I do too. Well, we've only gone over, let's scratch the surface when it comes to Social Security, so we'll have to go through some more on a different show, but we have come to the end here. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful Friday and weekend. We're sponsored by Brandon Hager, our Medicare specialist. He's absolutely excellent, so if you need Medicare help, you can contact him by calling 940-781-0359. And if you need to contact us, again, it's 214-778-5645.
And if there's any questions at all, Maniacs, just go ahead and type them in, and
in your comments, absolutely.
We'd love to answer them for you on next shows. Thanks for watching.
Advisory services are offered by Interlinc Financial Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor in the state of Texas. Insurance products and services are offered through Texas Family Insurance, Inc., an affiliated company. Brought to you by the JP Kathy and the Crew Network every Thursday morning at 7:30. Tune in for Moneylinc, brought to you by Interlinc Financial Services, LLC. You don't want to miss these two wizards, these two magnificent financial duo in Gayle and Steve. We'll be back next Thursday, 7:30. Have a blessed weekend, everybody.
See you next time.